result, good or bad, can be traced back to a root. And that root is philosophy, the set of ideas that quietly governs every decision you make, every action you take. I remember when I first heard that, it struck me. Philosophy, not strategy, not tactics, not money or contacts. Philosophy. It made me pause and take a hard look at what was driving my decisions. Because you don't get in life what you want. You get in life what you are. And what you are is determined by the philosophy you adopt. What is philosophy, really? It's not just what you say when someone puts you on the spot. It's the collection of beliefs, attitudes, and assumptions that shape your interpretation of every event. It's your personal operating system, quietly working in the background. The lens you use to make sense of the world and your place in it. Now, some people come looking for dramatic change, new results, new income, new relationships. They want a new life, but they try to patch it together with old thinking. And if life isn't changing, the first place to look isn't outside. The first place to look is philosophy. Because nothing changes until the philosophy changes. You see, your philosophy is the thing that sets your direction. If you're not happy with where you're headed, the answer isn't to speed up. It's to check the compass. Is your philosophy sending you where you truly want to go? Are your most cherished ideas moving you forward or holding you back? It's a humbling exercise. It requires a bit of honesty, sometimes even discomfort. But if you want different results, you have to be willing to trace them back to their source. When you see a garden overrun by weeds, you don't blame the plants. You look to the gardener. And if the results in your life don't match your hopes, don't blame the harvest. Check the seeds. Most people, if they're honest, realize their philosophy wasn't built overnight. It's a slow collection, picked up from family, school, friends, books, or sometimes just from surviving one day at a time. Some parts work, others sabotage. And if the results aren't right, that philosophy probably hasn't changed in a while. Because nothing changes until the philosophy does. You might hear someone say, if I just had a little more money, things would be different. Or, if I lived somewhere else, my results would change. But you take the same philosophy to a new job or a new city, and guess what follows? The same results. So let's agree on this. If you want to reprogram a losing philosophy, you must first admit that every result is a child of your philosophy. That's the starting point for all growth. The bad news is, the results are your responsibility. The good news is, if you change your philosophy, you change everything. I was once in that spot, wondering why my results weren't matching my ambition. I wanted success, but my philosophy was built around scarcity and shortcuts. It took time for me to realize that my thinking was running the show, not the world around me. This is why I urge everyone to take inventory, not of their bank account or their achievements, but of the ideas that have taken root. Because those ideas are steering the ship. And if you want a new destination, you must start with a new map. That's the root of results. It's the foundation for any change you want to make in your life. Trace it back to philosophy, always. It's a strange thing, but recognizing a losing philosophy is a little like waking up in a house that's been quietly sinking for years. At first, you think the floor is supposed to lean that way. But once you notice, you can't ignore it anymore. And you start to see all the little cracks that were there the whole time. You know what forms the foundation of a losing philosophy? Excuses, justifications, blame. It's a constant parade of reasons why it's someone else's fault, or why the timing isn't right, or why life is unfair. It whispers, if it wasn't for my boss, if it wasn't for the government, if it wasn't for the weather, anything but the truth. And what about shortcuts? The losing philosophy is always searching for the quick fix, the magic pill, the effortless answer. It believes in something for nothing. It wants the harvest without the planting, the reward without the discipline. And when that doesn't work, it finds someone to blame. Victim thinking becomes a habit. You start seeing yourself as acted upon, instead of as the one who acts. Instead of shaping the world, you let the world shape you. Your circumstances become the explanation for everything. If the wind doesn't blow your way, you curse the wind, never thinking to adjust your own sail. But here's the turning point. You can't change what you refuse to confront. If you keep defending your old story, why you couldn't, why you shouldn't, why it never works out, you give up your power to change. I've met so many people who are fiercely loyal to their excuses. You try to hand them a new idea, and they throw it right back. Because if they let go of their excuses, they have to face the discomfort of responsibility. Sometimes the losing philosophy isn't loud and dramatic. It's subtle. It shows up as procrastination, as indecision, as the feeling that you're always just one break away from turning it all around, but never quite getting there. And the longer it lasts, the more normal it seems. It blends into your days. Before you know it, you're living in it. That's why awareness is the first step in any reset. You've got to catch yourself in the act. Catch the words you use, the attitudes you nurture, the company you keep. Start asking, is this moving me forward or is it holding me back? Am I spending my time blaming or am I correcting my direction? Nobody drifts into a winning philosophy by accident. It takes intention. But drifting into a losing one, that's easy. That takes nothing at all. Just let days turn into weeks. Let excuses pile up. And before you know it, the foundation is set. I encourage you, don't wait for a catastrophe to shake you awake. You can start becoming aware today. Notice the patterns. Pay attention to the story you tell yourself when things don't go your way. Are you the author or just a character trapped by the plot? If you want to reprogram a losing philosophy, start with awareness. You can't reset what you refuse to recognize. And the sooner you see it, the sooner you can change it. That's where the power of ideas comes in. Ideas are like seeds. The moment you plant them in the mind, they begin their quiet work. Some are seeds of possibility, others are seeds of limitation. But every idea, no matter how small, is working on you, shaping your philosophy one thought at a time. I used to think the major problem was circumstances. What's happening outside? But the real battle is always internal. What kind of seeds have I let get planted? What am I watering every day with my attention? You see, good ideas and bad ideas don't just stay in the mind. They take root, they grow, and eventually they show up as results. If someone wants a different kind of harvest, the first thing to do is check the seeds. Are you filling your mind with weeds or with wheat? Are you letting every stray thought, every pessimistic voice, every complaint settle in and take up residence? Or are you seeking out ideas that build, inspire, encourage? Bad ideas are sneaky. They promise quick rewards, but they poison the soil. They make you cynical. They shrink your vision. They convince you the effort isn't worth it. Before you know it, those seeds have become beliefs, and beliefs determine the boundaries of your life. But here's the good news. You can plant new seeds. Any day, any time. Someone once told me, "You are what you think about most of the time." That phrase changed me. I realized if I want wealth, health, happiness, I can't keep letting the wrong ideas have the run of my mind. I have to become the gatekeeper. I have to decide consciously what gets in and what gets nurtured. That's why change always begins with new input. If the garden isn't producing what you want, You can't just hope for better fruit. You have to bring in new seeds. You have to read new books, listen to new voices, stretch your thinking. You have to expose yourself to possibilities that challenge the old habits. You see, ideas compound. One new idea, properly planted, can change everything. Sometimes it's just a phrase. Sometimes it's a story. Sometimes it's a question that won't let you go. But if you keep feeding on the old ideas, the ones that say you can't, you won't, it's not possible. Don't be surprised when your results keep repeating themselves. On the other hand, plant enough good seeds and soon your mind becomes fertile ground for achievement. The weeds don't stand a chance if you tend the garden every day. It's not enough to have a good idea once in a while. You have to make it a habit to feed your mind with what you want to see in your life. That's why the most important investment you can make is in new ideas. Ideas that help you see what's possible, stretch your goals, ignite your ambition. I remember the first time I picked up a book that told me success was something I could design. Not inherit, not stumble into, but build thought by thought, action by action. That idea took root and changed everything. It pushed out the weeds of limitation. It taught me that the smallest shift in thinking could lead to the biggest difference in living. If someone asks where change starts, tell them with a single idea. Plant the right ones and watch what happens. So, if you want to reprogram a losing philosophy, start bringing in better ideas. The rest will follow. But here's something to watch for: the danger of drift. Most people never choose a losing philosophy on purpose. Nobody wakes up and decides, today, I'll build my life on excuses and blame. That's not how it happens. Losing philosophies aren't usually adopted. They're accumulated through neglect. Drift is subtle. It's quiet. It asks nothing from you but inattention. You get busy. You get distracted. And one day you look up and wonder how you wandered so far from the course you set years ago. It wasn't one giant leap. It was 100 tiny steps, each too small to notice at the time. It's a little like being at the beach and wading out into the water. At first, you're right in front of your towel. But after a while, you look back and you're 50 yards down the shoreline. You didn't swim there. The current carried you while you weren't paying attention. That's how most people end up living out philosophies that don't serve them. Not by intention, but by drifting. They let a little cynicism settle in here, a little laziness over there, a small compromise in one corner, a missed promise in another. Those little errors in judgment start to add up day after day. Now here's something to remember. A small error in judgment, repeated every day, eventually leads to disaster. It's not the single mistake that ruins us. It's the slow, steady accumulation. Skipping the reading, ignoring the budget, letting the wrong influence have a little more say, just for today. None of these seem like a big deal by themselves, but give it 5 years and the consequences are enormous. On the flip side, small disciplines, just as subtle, just as easy to ignore, can carry you to success. But it takes awareness to break the drift. You have to lift your eyes from the distractions and ask yourself, where am I going? Am I headed somewhere by design, or am I just letting the current take me wherever it pleases? Most people drift because they don't revisit their philosophy. They assume that if it got them this far, it will take them the rest of the way. But philosophies age. The world changes. Circumstances shift. And what once served you can become your greatest liability if you don't pay attention. You don't have to overhaul your life in a day, but you do have to wake up. You have to notice when the drift has set in. If you keep doing what you're doing, where will you end up? If you keep thinking the way you're thinking, what kind of results will you have a year from now, 5 years from now? The danger of drift is real because it's invisible. You only see its effects when it's too late to change course with a single step. The earlier you catch it, the easier it is to correct. The good news is, you can choose a new direction at any time. All it takes is a little awareness and a willingness to make small, steady corrections. So if you've found yourself off course, don't beat yourself up. Just decide right now to stop drifting. Take back the steering wheel. Remind yourself that direction, not intention, determines destination. And a philosophy left adrift will always take you somewhere you didn't mean to go. That's the power of paying attention. Because small errors left unchecked will carry you places you never wanted to visit. But a single, intentional correction, done consistently, can bring you right back on course. And if you want real change, you have to get down to the core. Accountability and ownership. Nothing moves until you move. Nothing changes until you step forward and claim responsibility for your own philosophy, your own results. As long as you defend what isn't working, you stay locked inside it. The first step to reprogramming anything is to quit making excuses for why it is the way it is. I used to think I could change my circumstances and the rest would follow. But I learned something valuable along the way. No one can reprogram what they keep defending. If you protect the old story, the old way of thinking, the old habits, you keep them alive. It's like locking the door on a room you don't want anyone to see. Trouble is, you're the one still living in that room. Responsibility clears the space for something new to take root. The moment you say, this is my life, these are my results, and I'm responsible for both, the landscape shifts. Suddenly, you're not a spectator anymore. You're the architect, the builder. You get to decide what gets demolished and what gets rebuilt. Now, this isn't about blame. It's not about carrying a sack of guilt around. It's about ownership, the ability to look at your life, your habits, your thinking, and say, if it's going to change, it's up to me, not someone else, not the government, not the company, not the neighbor, me. Some people spend years polishing their excuses. They get good at it, listing all the reasons why things can't change, why the odds are stacked against them. But you can't install new beliefs in a mind that's already full of defenses. You have to be willing to drop the armor. That's when growth begins. When you finally quit arguing for your limitations, you make room for new truths to settle in. If you want to plant a new crop, you have to clear out the old weeds. It's humbling. Sometimes it hurts the pride. But pride never put dinner on the table. Pride never built a business. Humility is the door to change because it says, I may not have all the answers, but I'm willing to learn. I remember a time when my results weren't matching my expectations. I tried to blame the market, the timing, even the weather. But nothing improved until I admitted that the biggest barrier wasn't out there. It was inside me. The day you make that admission is the day everything opens up. This is where accountability becomes your friend, not your enemy. When you take ownership, you take back the power to choose your response. You can't always change what happens to you, but you can always change what happens in you. That's where your future is shaped. So don't wait for someone else to hand you a better philosophy. Decide that you're in charge of your own programming. Decide that the story can change and you can be the author. Accept responsibility, clear the space, and let something new begin to grow. That's how you open the door to a new philosophy, by claiming ownership and making accountability the foundation. Everything good that follows will be built on that choice. From there, it's time to take a closer look at what's running in the background. Think of the mind as a program. Some loops are helpful, others are harmful, and many were installed when you weren't even paying attention. If the program isn't producing the results you want, it's time for an upgrade. Most people try to change their lives by changing their surroundings or chasing new opportunities. But the real transformation happens when you rewrite the script running in your head. The old loops, the doubts, the complaints, the warnings that say don't risk, don't try, don't bother, those need replacing. But you can't just delete them. You have to overwrite them with something better. What do you install in their place? Principles that work, discipline, the habit of learning, the spirit of service, consistency. These are the new lines of code that make all the difference. But here's the secret. Repetition installs the new defaults. Just like a new skill, you don't read it once and have it forever. You practice it until it's automatic, until it shows up on its own when you need it most. When I first started my journey, my old program ran almost on autopilot. Fear of failure, scarcity thinking, the urge to cut corners and settle for less. It took a conscious decision to install new routines. Wake up a little earlier, read something that stretched my thinking, serve someone without expecting anything back, save a little more, spend a little less. Over time, the new routines started to run the show. You might catch yourself falling back into old loops. Don't worry, that's normal. The mind likes what's familiar, even when it doesn't serve you. But the more you practice the new principles, the more those patterns become your default setting. You begin to react with discipline instead of delay, with optimism instead of cynicism, with courage instead of retreat. Imagine it like this. Every day, you get to write a new line of code in your mind. Will it be a principle that moves you forward or a leftover habit from yesterday? The choice is yours. If you want to see new results, make sure your new software is running every morning. It's also important to remember that upgrades take time. You wouldn't expect a computer to install a brand new system in a minute. You shouldn't expect your mind to do it overnight. But every repetition counts. Every day you choose discipline over distraction, learning over laziness, service over selfishness, you're upgrading the program. You're creating new automatic responses that will serve you when things get tough. Don't underestimate the power of consistency. Some people make the mistake of searching for one big breakthrough. But the truth is, the little upgrades done day after day add up to a completely new operating system. Before long, you look back and hardly recognize the person who used to run on excuses and shortcuts. So, as you work on reprogramming your philosophy, focus on upgrading your mental software. Practice the new principles until they run on their own. Install them every day, with every decision. Let repetition do its work, and soon you'll see your results start to match your ambitions. That's how you create a lasting change, not just by wishing for it, but by building it into your daily code. But don't overlook one of the most powerful forces shaping all that work: association and environment. You can spend all your energy changing your ideas and upgrading your thinking, but if you never change who and what you listen to, it's like trying to run new software on an old broken machine. The environment will always win. You cannot outthink the influence you sit under. That's just a fact. The people you spend time with, the conversations you allow, the information you feed on, they all leave fingerprints on your philosophy. It's subtle, but it's real. Spend enough time with negative thinkers, and soon you'll pick up their language, their doubts, their fears. Sit with winners, and your mind starts to stretch. Your goals begin to grow. If you want to reprogram your philosophy, you have to pay close attention to your associations. Who are you listening to? Who has your ear when you're most vulnerable, when things are tough, or when you're tempted to take the easy way out? Are you surrounded by people who challenge you, encourage you, hold you to a higher standard? Or are you surrounded by those who pull you back to the average? I remember a season in my life when my results weren't matching my dreams. I worked on my attitude. I worked on my discipline, but it still felt like I was running in place. Then I took a hard look at my associations. I realized I was spending too much time in environments where the expectation was to do just enough to get by. Nobody was talking about goals. Nobody was talking about dreams. They were talking about surviving, not thriving. And I was absorbing all of it. So I made a shift. I started seeking out environments where achievement was celebrated, where discipline was normal, where people talked about ideas, not just gossip. It was uncomfortable at first, but the more I sat under better influences, the more my thinking began to change. New possibilities opened up. My philosophy started to match the company I was keeping. Your environment is shaping you every day, whether you realize it or not. The books on your shelf, the voices in your ear, the conversations at your table, they're programming your beliefs. If you want to change your direction, sometimes the most important step is to change your scenery. That might mean spending less time in the old circles. It might mean seeking out new mentors, new friends, new sources of inspiration. It might even mean letting go of certain conversations so you can make room for the ones that push you forward. Remember this, your philosophy is contagious, and so is everyone else's. If you want a winning philosophy, sit with winners. If you want to grow, plant yourself in an environment where growth is the expectation, not the exception. You can't always control every influence, but you can choose where you spend your time and who gets your attention. Make those choices count. Change the input, and soon the output. Your results, your habits, your whole philosophy will start to change too. That's the power of association and environment. Don't underestimate it. If you want a new philosophy, start by choosing new company. But don't stop there. If you're serious about building a new philosophy, make study a daily habit. You have to become a student again. You have to put yourself in the posture of learning, not just once, not just when you feel like it, but every day. Study is the maintenance system for a better philosophy. Most people stop studying after school. They figure, I've got my diploma, I'm done. But formal education will make you a living. Self-education will make you a fortune. The world keeps changing. Ideas keep evolving, and the only way to keep your philosophy sharp is to keep feeding it new material. Study isn't just about books, though books are powerful. It's about seeking understanding. It's about asking questions and searching for principles that stand the test of time. It's about learning from history, from mistakes, from successes, from every source you can find. Every page you read, every note you take, every idea you examine is one more upgrade to your philosophy. I remember when I decided to get serious about study. I set aside a little time each day, not hours, just enough to keep the fire burning. I started with a single book, then another. Pretty soon, I noticed my language changing. My thoughts were clearer. My decisions were better. That's what happens when you make study a habit. Study creates perspective. When you read, you see how others have navigated storms, how they've built fortunes, how they've overcome setbacks. It gives you more than just information. It gives you wisdom. And wisdom is the great corrector of a losing philosophy. Don't just study what's comfortable. Study what challenges you. Pick up a biography of someone who's done what you want to do. Read philosophy. Read history. Read about health, about wealth, about leadership and relationships. Feed your mind a balanced diet. Reflection is just as important as reading. Take time to think about what you're learning. How does it apply to your life? What could you do differently today based on a single new idea? That's how knowledge becomes transformation. It's not what you know, it's what you do with what you know. Make a commitment to daily study and reflection. It doesn't matter if it's 5 minutes or 50. What matters is the consistency. The mind is like a muscle. It grows stronger with regular exercise. Neglect it, and it gets weak, stale, prone to old habits. If you want to reprogram a losing philosophy, let study become part of your daily routine. Stack enough good days together, and soon you'll look back and realize you've become a different person. The old thinking just doesn't fit anymore. Education is the safeguard against drift. It's the discipline that protects your new program. The more you learn, the more you see. And the more you see, the better decisions you make. The cycle repeats, and your life moves steadily in a new direction. That's the habit of study. Don't leave it to chance. Build it in every day and let it feed your new philosophy. But don't stop at collecting ideas. A new philosophy isn't meant to sit on a shelf like a trophy. It has to get out into the field. It has to be tested, shaped, proven. That's where real change happens, in action. You can read all the books, listen to all the seminars, fill notebooks with quotes and insights. But philosophy has to translate into behavior, into decisions. Every day brings a dozen chances to prove to yourself that your new code is running. You might have an old belief that says, "Why try? It never works out for me." That's a line from the old program. Now you install a new belief. Effort pays. Small disciplines make a difference. You get a chance to act on it. Maybe it's in your business, maybe with your health, maybe in a conversation with someone you care about. The moment you choose the new belief over the old excuse, you're rewriting the program. This is where most people struggle. The old habits are comfortable. The new ones are unfamiliar. But every time you practice a new belief, every time you step into discipline instead of delay, optimism instead of doubt, you reinforce the new software. Action is the proof that your philosophy is changing. Don't wait for the big moments. The test comes in the small things. The way you start your day, the way you respond to a setback, the way you spend an extra hour in the evening. If your new philosophy says learning is vital, then pick up the book. If it says generosity builds wealth, then find a way to give, even if it's small. Every decision becomes a checkpoint. Did I run the old code or the new? If you catch yourself falling back, don't get discouraged. It's a process. Just try again at the next opportunity. The more you act on your new beliefs, the stronger they become. Action is the great confirmer. I've seen people write out wonderful goals and affirmations, but nothing changed until they put them to the test in real life. The gym membership doesn't build muscle. The workout does. A bookshelf full of wisdom won't change your results unless you practice what you learn. That's why philosophy has to be lived, not just studied. The beautiful part is every small victory builds momentum. Each decision in favor of your new philosophy makes it easier the next time. The habit starts to form, the new beliefs get reinforced, and before long, you don't have to force it. It becomes natural. So use your daily life as the testing ground. Don't be afraid of mistakes. Every failed attempt is just feedback, one more clue about how to improve. What matters is that you keep testing, keep practicing, keep choosing the new path. When your philosophy moves from your head to your hands, from your thoughts to your actions, that's when you know you're truly reprogramming your life. But even then, you can't get complacent. You can put in the hard work, upgrade your philosophy, install new beliefs, and start seeing new results. But if you're not careful, a little bit of neglect can let the old weeds creep back in. Even strong philosophies can decay if you don't review and protect them. Think about your mind as a garden. You clear out the old, you plant what you want. You tend to it every day. But what happens if you ignore it for a while? The weeds don't ask for permission. They just show up. Negativity, doubt, cynicism. These things have a way of sneaking back in, especially when life throws a curveball. It's easy to become careless once things start going well. You might say, I've learned the lesson, I've done the work, I'm set for life. But the truth is, there are no permanent victories. Just like a garden, your philosophy needs regular tending. Otherwise, the wrong influences can corrupt what you've worked so hard to build. One of the biggest dangers is the shortcut, the voice that whispers, just this once. You don't have to keep your standards today. Take it easy. Nobody's watching. But every shortcut weakens your program. It chips away at your new foundation. Before long, you're not just slipping, you're sliding. You have to make a habit of regular review. Set aside time to think about your thinking. Ask yourself, am I still running the new code, or have I slipped back into old patterns? Are my daily actions matching my new philosophy, or have I let small compromises pile up? Watch for negativity. It comes disguised as harmless conversation, as entertainment, as advice from well-meaning friends. You have to be the gatekeeper of your mind. Protect it fiercely. If you catch yourself drifting, correct it right away. Don't let a bad day turn into a bad week or a bad week turn into a bad year. It's also important to surround yourself with reminders of what matters. Keep your books close. Stay connected to people who inspire you. Keep your goals in front of you, where you can see them every day. Don't let your standards slip just because you've made a little progress. Every philosophy, no matter how strong, is vulnerable to neglect. The moment you think you're immune is the moment you're at risk. Stay humble, stay hungry. Review your beliefs, guard your influences, and make sure the old program doesn't sneak back in through the back door. Remember, the best time to repair the roof is when the sun is shining. Don't wait for a crisis to get back to the basics. Make the review and protection of your philosophy a daily practice. That's how you ensure your new program stays strong and your life keeps moving in the right direction. Guard your mind, protect your progress, and keep the weeds out one day at a time. There's a principle at work here that shapes every part of your life, quietly but powerfully. The compound effect of better thinking. Just as money compounds, small, steady investments growing into great fortunes. So do your thoughts, your choices, your philosophy. A single improved decision may not look like much in the moment, but stack one on top of another, day after day, and the results become extraordinary. The real magic isn't in the giant leap. It's in the steady, unrelenting march of small upgrades. Each time you choose to act on your new philosophy, each time you say yes to discipline, yes to learning, yes to generosity, those decisions start to reinforce each other. The compound effect works both ways. If you let small errors in judgment build up, they create a life you never intended. But if you let wise choices pile up, they build a life you couldn't have imagined. When I started to change my own thinking, the first results were invisible. Nobody cheered. Nobody noticed. But I noticed. I could feel the difference in my confidence, my energy, my outlook. I wasn't just reacting to life. I was designing it, one decision at a time. It's the little things. Reading a few pages every night, making that extra sales call, taking a moment to reflect before reacting. One day doesn't change the world, but 5 years later, you look up and everything is different. Your bank account, your relationships, your health. All the visible changes are simply the result of a new philosophy, compounding quietly behind the scenes. Some people chase after dramatic breakthroughs, but most breakthroughs are really the sum of 1,000 quiet choices that finally add up. The good news is anyone can do this. You don't have to make a fortune in a day. You don't have to become wise overnight. You just need to get a little better, a little stronger, a little wiser day after day. The process is simple, but it isn't always easy. You have to trust the principle. You have to believe that your new way of thinking will pay off, even when the results are still invisible. That's faith in action, knowing that each improved thought, each small discipline is a deposit in your future. Eventually, the world starts to notice. People will ask how you did it. They'll wonder about your secret. The secret is no secret. It's the compound effect of better thinking, practiced over time. So let each day count. Let each choice, no matter how small, be a step in the right direction. Remind yourself, every new result begins with a new thought. Stack those thoughts together, and soon you'll have a new life. That's the unstoppable power of a winning philosophy. It compounds, it builds on itself, and given enough time, it will take you places you never dreamed possible. And that's where it all starts to come together, becoming the example. This is where the journey of reprogramming your philosophy comes full circle. Because when your philosophy changes, so does your life. And when your life changes, you become living proof of what's possible. People watch more than they listen. They notice the way you carry yourself, the way you respond to adversity, the habits you keep when nobody's watching. The best way to teach a new philosophy is not just to talk about it, but to live it. When you walk the path, you light the way for others. You may not think anyone's paying attention, but believe me, they are. Your family, your friends, your coworkers. They see the changes in your attitude, your results, your resilience. You become a beacon, whether you intend to or not. Your actions become your credibility. Your life becomes the message. I remember when I started to see real change in my own life. It wasn't because I became a preacher or a lecturer. It was because people could see the difference. I was more generous, more focused, more positive. Opportunities started coming my way, not because I chased them, but because I became the kind of person who attracted them. This is what I call the silent invitation. You don't have to announce your new philosophy from the rooftops. Just let your results speak. Let your habits demonstrate your beliefs. Let your growth invite questions. People will come to you and say, what changed? What's your secret? And then you can share, not as a theorist, but as someone who's done the work. Becoming the example isn't about perfection. It's about progress. It's about living out the principles you talk about, day in and day out. It's about consistency. When you stumble, and you will, let your recovery be part of the lesson. When you succeed, let your gratitude show. When you learn something new, pass it on. The world doesn't need more critics. It needs more models. More people willing to demonstrate what a winning philosophy looks like in action. That's how you influence your children, your peers, your community. Not just by telling them, but by showing them. So let your life be the example. Let your results become your testimony. Let your journey from a losing philosophy to a winning one inspire someone else to start their own. When you do that, you multiply your impact. You turn your story into a force for good that reaches further than you can imagine. In the end, that's the highest reward. Not just a changed life, but a life that helps others change too. That's the real legacy of a new philosophy, and that's available to anyone willing to make the journey.